Venus, the planet of love and beauty, gets caught in the crossfire as she forms a tense T-square with Saturn and Jupiter between Friday, August 16th and Wednesday, August 21st. Get ready for delays, tests, cold shoulders, rejection, and tough decisions. Let's take a closer look and break it down for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you enjoy my work, please take a few seconds of your time to leave me a like or a comment, subscribe, and press the notification bell. Watch another one of my videos. You can also say thank you by buying me a coffee, a tea, a croissant, whatever your heart desires. I really appreciate that. As always, before we dive in, if you're looking for additional guidance, you'd like a one-on-one consultation, you have questions that this video doesn't answer and that are a lot more personal, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I specialize in relationship astrology, looking at how compatible you are with your significant other. Any relationship works, actually, not just romantic ones, but also natal chart readings, predictive readings, looking at your solar return chart, looking at your year ahead, your transits, progressions, and so much more. And there's also a couple of options that can all be found on my website. Additionally, on my website, you may find my magical creations such as candles and oils. Just like you and I, we have birth charts that describe our lives and describe our strengths and weaknesses. So does every single moment. I work with astrology in a very proactive way. I track the cycles and pay attention to the positive transits, and then I capture the moment and encapsulate it in the shape of a candle or oil. In this video, I'd like to highlight my Venus in Taurus beauty. These candles or oils capture Venus in the sign of rulership, co-present with Jupiter in Taurus, a powerful concoction of good luck, beauty, charm. If you are a creative individual, this could be lovely for boosting your popularity, helping you find inspiration. This is also perfect for any relationship struggles you might be going through. You know, we are in the Mercury retrograde. Venus is in the sign of her fall. She's ruled by Mercury retrograde. And difficult transits come and go, right? And we always know that things will get better. But if they do get better, at some point we might deal with some other challenging transits. So Venus and Taurus could be a lovely companion for that. I also highly recommend this as a candle for anyone born with their natal Venus in the sign of fall or detriment, and those will be Virgo, Scorpio, or Aries. If your Venus is retrograde when you were born, if it was retrograde, if it's placed in the dark house, 6th, 8th, or 12th, and if it's making a difficult aspect such as square and opposition to Mars, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. This could be a great combination, a great candle for you. And then, you know, I also have other Venus creations. So if you're feeling more in the mood for green, you can pick up Exalted Venus, or if you like Venus and Libra vibes, I have that too. So thank you so much for listening. Let's talk about Venus going through a couple of rings of hell. I'm actually breaking Venusian transits into two videos, but Venus is very much involved in this quite tense T-square between herself in Virgo, between Saturn in Pisces, and Jupiter and also Mars in Gemini. But I am breaking it into two because the first T-square, the T-square between Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter builds first, and then the square to Mars is the second part. So there's going to be a part two to this Venusian storyline. Keep your eyes and your ears open. So chronologically, Venus squares Jupiter and opposes Saturn on August 19th. And this occurs at 17 degrees mutable signs. Venus is at about 17 degrees Virgo, Saturn is currently at about 17 degrees Pisces, and Jupiter is similarly in Gemini, placed in Gemini. So it's exact on August 19th. Early August 19th morning, Venus squares Jupiter at 1:52 a.m., opposes Saturn immediately after at 4:29 a.m. But due to the nature of the way aspects work, we have the energy building, right? Think of it as you're going to get a haircut and you're getting things done, you're building your schedule accordingly, you're starting to feel a certain way. So we start to feel this transit from August 16th, which is Friday, and then it lasts until Wednesday, August 21st, when the effects subside. But then, of course, right after that, Venus squares Mars. So the effects of this transit subside, but there's another one coming up. So be ready. And the effects are going to be felt the most by people with planets and angles between 14 and 20 degrees. So if you have your chart, you can pull it up and look at whether you have any planets between 14 and 20 degrees, mutable signs. And those are Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius. You're likely to feel it that much stronger. So in order to understand the T-square, and this T-square is also interesting to look at in connection with the fact that we also get the full moon on the same day, on August 19th, and the full moon is squaring Uranus, and Uranus is in Taurus. It's ruled by Venus, so everything is like intermingled, interconnected. I was listening to the Astrology podcast, and Austin Coppock was talking about it as like a storm of things, and there's some prizes in there, but there are also some blades or some rocks, some more challenging things that are sort of swirling in the storm, right? So some of us might win something out of this, right? Like sometimes Venus and Saturn represents commitment, so I wouldn't be surprised if some people get engaged around this time, because that is in a way also like a tough decision you have to make, because you are saying no to being single, right? But some of us might deal with a lot of frustration and sort of realizations that we would rather not deal with. All of it is, of course, important. Saturn will not give you lessons that you cannot understand, learn, or burdens that you cannot carry. But it's very intense. It's pretty intense, especially for those people with these placements from 14 to 20 degrees of the mutable signs. Let's talk about it. Let's break it down piece by piece first, because first Venus squares Jupiter, and that is the one on August 19th at 1:52, but the same sort of energy is still building 3 days before, 3 days after. Venus and Jupiter together is really great for expanding, for socializing, for networking, for having fun, right? It's Venus sort of desires a good time. Jupiter wants to grow and learn. They might do things differently. So, Venus in Virgo is very analytical, very perfectionist, very structured, and Jupiter in Gemini represents a bit of a let's try something else, let's have a good time in a unique way. And there's also this thing of your lower mind, sort of your lower body, which Venus might represent, your desire nature, contradicting your higher mind, which is what Jupiter means. So sometimes this might lead to being too gluttonous, or too kind of dealing with poor morals, where you will go above and beyond to have fun, and that might result in you over drinking, over promising. Even there might be a tendency towards affairs if the relationship is weak, which is what this transit ultimately is testing. It's testing how strong your relationship, how strong is your commitment to one another. And relationship, you can replace a relationship to a partnership, a friendship, business ownership, creative relationship, right, with your creative object, project, and things like that. So what definitely could be inspirational, could be an exciting time, but potentially brings those challenges of excess. So watch out for excess. And of course, that's where Saturn comes in. So this is not just Venus in a square to Jupiter. This is Venus in a square to Jupiter opposite Saturn. The exact opposition to Saturn occurs on August 19th as well, 4:29 a.m. And Saturn sort of slaps you on your hand. It's like, sit down. If we're talking about being too gluttonous or too extravagant, overspending, Saturn may remind you potentially quite harshly of the emptiness of your bank account or of other commitments you have. You know, like Venus square to Jupiter might be, let me surprise my significant other with like this fun trip. And then there is this opposition to Saturn, and your significant other tells you that they cannot go. They have a busy work week ahead of them. Saturn opposite Venus can definitely bring up a sense of loneliness. Like you have all this excitement and all these plans, but you don't have anywhere to go or anyone to go with, maybe. And so it can make you feel a bit depressed, a bit sad and lonely. It can also reveal any relationship challenges that are brewing under the surface. You know, like if the relationship is sort of barely hanging on and this aspect comes about and it reveals that there is not a strong foundation to build on, this might be a sign that things, you know, will sort of fall apart potentially. But that's all it does. I think like Saturn opposite Venus, well, it's like either a tough decision of stepping aside or a tough decision of recommitting to something. And if there is some rejection, denial, something is not working out with the way you intended it to work out, it might also be an invitation to take a step back to come up with another plan, right? Like if you're thinking of that vacation example that I gave and it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean you can never go on a fun trip with your significant other, but maybe you need to be more strategic and sort of Saturnian in how you plan it. Relationships, having to recommit to relationships, having to be realistic about things, having to deal with some kind of creative rejection or delay is another possibility here. And of course, because Venus squares Jupiter and opposes Saturn, it is also gets in the mix of the Jupiter-Saturn square, which is another video I made recently. But the Jupiter-Saturn square is that point at which your beliefs are getting tested and your desire to expand is getting tested. And Saturn just potentially not very gently, but reminds you that there is some more work you have to do. Anyways, prepare for August 18th, 19th, especially to be a bit low. You may feel more sad. You may feel a bit depressed. You may sort of question what's the point of it all if life just keeps teaching you these lessons, right? I get a lot of comments like this, like, when are the lessons going to stop? They will when you die. When you die. But I mean, it's like a joke, but it's also not really a joke. You want to keep learning lessons because the moment you stop, you are either losing interest in life or you're no longer alive. So yeah, keep an open mind, try to see the lightness in the challenges. Remember that this is just one transit, right? It doesn't, and something else might be actually at this time might be happening in your natal chart that is quite positive. That's why I would recommend you get a reading with a professional astrologer. The way I do my year ahead readings, I actually send out a written report with the important dates, so you can also see what's happening for you personally, because if there is like a really strong positive transit happening in your chart simultaneously, the effects of the more difficult one might not be felt as strongly. And you can find all of my reading options, my pricing, my schedule on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. So let's dive into the rising signs and break it down, talk about what this might mean for you personally. If you are an Aries rising, Venus in your 6th house will oppose Saturn in the 12th and square Jupiter in the 3rd. And to me, that just feels like there is maybe something that is overwhelming in your life. You're looking at the desire for professional, maybe recognition, desire for like order and organization, opposite Saturn in the 6th and opposite Saturn in the 12th, squaring Jupiter in the 3rd. It may feel like there's just a sense of like overwhelmed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot like responsibilities you have to people in your life, maybe even some kind of crossed wires, some kind of miscommunications that are happening. I think it's interesting because like if you look at Venus in the 6th square, Jupiter in the 3rd, it feels very professional. It feels like there is some kind of project that you are committing to, that you are working towards. The Jupiter is in the 3rd, you're learning something, you are expanding your skills, you're bettering your knowledge. And then that opposition to Saturn in the 12th just reads as like something from your past dragging you down, like a hand coming out of the water and like pulling you in. But there might be, you know, Saturn in the 12th, there might be lessons involving the past, lessons involving healing, lessons involving self-defeating tendencies, self-undoing behaviors. It might be things you wouldn't normally think about that are sort of catching you off guard and frustrating you. And I think calling your attention to those, like, to kind of questions of mental health, questions of therapy, questions of letting go, processing, healing before you can get to a place of growth. The missing piece to this T-square is Sagittarius, right? We have 3 mutable signs, Virgo, Gemini, and Pisces represented, but Sag is missing. So that might suggest that the answer lies in reading a philosophical book, talking to a mentor, a teacher, a guide, watching a documentary, even like learning something, right? Like kind of lighting up the fire within you, the fire of like optimism, the fire of passion, and trying to balance these frustrating, heavy rejection type energies with something else. I can also see this as like, if you're looking for a job right now, maybe things are much slower and much more frustrating than you would like. So then that Sagittarius piece is like, keep learning, keep growing, keep opening yourself up to new possibilities, and trust that it will happen. The good things will come. And if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. For the lovely Taurus rising, Venus in the 5th house will square Jupiter in the 2nd and oppose Saturn in the 11th. And I wonder, with Venus in the 5th and a square to Jupiter in the 2nd, there may be some kind of a new passion, a new interest that you're exploring. Maybe it's not new, maybe it's been in your life for a while. It might involve love, it might involve travel or some kind of pleasure. It might involve parenthood. And then there is that square to Jupiter in the 2nd. Watch out for overspending. But I think you're like so excited and enthusiastic. You're like, if I don't have money now, I'm going to make money. I will find money. But there might be a bit of like tendency to overspend and to get like overly fired up about something. And then there's the opposition to Saturn in the 11th, which suggests that you may run into some kind of an issue involving social media, involving community, involving what other people think of you or what other people expect from you. So, you know, like getting excited to be a parent only to realize that you need to deal with, I don't know, with the fact that you don't have any of your friends close by and you're going to have to do it alone, or getting excited about some kind of creative project and having people around you tell you that you won't succeed, or it's silly, it's impractical. So of course Saturn really wants you to have a good strategy for whatever it is you're working on, if it involves parenthood, if it involves love or creativity, or even any other passion project. It wants you to think of the steps and maybe even on some level build your reliance and trust in yourself, because sometimes Saturn in the 11th might put strain on our friendships and make us feel alone, make us feel a bit unsupported, and like we have to grind and sacrifice a lot in order to have our friendships keep going. So maybe there's also an invitation there to like separate your self-worth from your friendship, separate your passion projects from the approval of other people. You may also have to make some sort of sacrifices and compromises involving money. This could potentially be some type of like opportunity coming your way, but maybe it doesn't pay well enough that you need to be more kind of careful. The T-square releases. All that means is that there are 3 mutable signs, the only one that's missing. So it releases into Sagittarius in your 8th house, which might suggest that the answer will lie in, structuring your finances better, leaning into mystery, spirituality, tarot, astrology for guidance, like doing more research, doing more planning. Maybe even possibly if, let's say, you were expecting your friend to borrow you some money and they say no. Maybe it's about getting a loan. Maybe it's about reaching out to some kind of financial official institution and asking them for help. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'd be happy to break this down for you, to talk about your natal chart, your year to come, your relationship, and more. If you are the beautiful Gemini rising, we've got Venus in your 4th, opposite Saturn in the 10th, square Jupiter in the 1st. So this one's interesting, right? Like Venus is in the 4th, you desire contact with family, you desire peace and comfort and security. It squares Jupiter in the 1st, and maybe there's a bit of tension between your personal goals and what's happening in the family, but also like excitement, new possibilities, new beginnings that maybe will involve you moving, or involve you starting a family, or will involve you stepping outside of your comfort zone somehow, like sort of new adventures that you are looking at. The Jupiter being in your 1st house is a big deal, happens once every 12 years, offers you a lot of sort of opportunities to reinvent yourself. And then this energy comes across Saturn in the 10th. And Saturn in the 10th could be something in your professional life that is not quite working out. You get another rejection letter or rejection email from a job you were really excited about. Or your boss is just expecting you to do 5 times the amount of work that you normally do, making you feel like you cannot explore your outside interests. Like physically, it's not quite possible. There might also be some tension between like what's happening in your home and what's happening in your professional life that is very much distracting you from these new possibilities and these new beginnings that you are thriving and moving towards. So very like sort of important questions of identity, of what your message is, of who you want to be, what you want to be known for, having to deal with the matters of like, what's happening in your home. Do you live where you want to live? Do you feel secure with where you are? And some roadblocks, rejection, delays involving career. The missing piece here is Sagittarius in the 7th, because we have 3 mutable signs but not Sagittarius represented. And that might suggest that your saving grace right now is your relationships. And even if you don't have everything figured out, you maybe have the resource of people in your life, people who can advise you, people who can help you. And sometimes even, booking a date with a friend or a date with your significant other could provide a welcome relief. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and please share down below how this resonates. How has Jupiter been in the 1st house? I feel like I keep asking you. It should be sort of exciting and lively energy, and it just started in May and will continue until June 2025. Yeah. If you are the beautiful Cancer rising, Venus in your 3rd house will square Jupiter in the 12th and will oppose Saturn in the 9th. And so Venus in the 3rd, she's interested in learning new things. She's interested in travel, going on short trips, in hanging out with siblings. She just wants to have fun, right? Like in the everyday life, The square to Jupiter in the 12th implies that you're directing your attention towards healing, you're directing your attention towards escaping the mundane by maybe traveling or changing careers. So it's quite an interesting dynamic that is purely represented by Venus and Jupiter. But then, of course, there is that opposition to Saturn in the 9th. And Saturn in the 9th might imply that you do not have all the pieces ready yet. Saturn is very much not like never. It's the energy of not yet. So Saturn might suggest that you need to take a step back. You need to think more carefully about things. It might suggest that if you're trying to move, there's still more legal hoops you need to jump through, more visas you need to apply to get, right? Saturn in the 9th might be a teacher being a little bit harsh and maybe trying to teach you an important lesson, but coming across as a jerk of some sorts. So, the square to the opposition to Saturn in the 9th might also be like an implication that before you make that important move, before you go after the interests you have, you need to examine what you believe in. Saturn in the 9th might be a sign that there is some type of like shift in mindset that is necessary, some type of like, maybe important realization you have to make, like sort of philosophical reorientation where maybe you're learning to believe in yourself more, you're learning to look at yourself as a hero. So it's like Saturn in the 9th could definitely bring very literal roadblocks in terms of like airfare getting canceled, like a flight getting canceled, or a teacher giving you a C, or a legal matter, some kind of visa not coming through or something. But it can also suggest that there is a need to perhaps rearrange things in your brain on some level. Watch out for sort of ideological debates and disagreements and tensions between like what you're trying to achieve and what is happening in your everyday life, or what you believe and what maybe your siblings or people in your life are saying. Some fights are not worth engaging into, especially if all they do is just create a headache. The missing piece is Sagittarius in the 6th house, because it's a T-square. It's not a, full square. One piece is missing. And Sagittarius in the 6th house might suggest that you can treat yourself to a massage at this time, focus on self-care, maybe also just focus on getting all your ducks in a row before you take action. Please share how this resonates. And if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are the lovely Leo rising, Venus in your 2nd house will square Jupiter in the 11th and oppose Saturn in the 8th. And here we're dealing with tension between your big schemes and dreams that involve your friendships, that involve your community, that involve helping the world, right? Some kind of like maybe you desire to volunteer or start a nonprofit organization, or even you just want to like sort of venture on social media, build your following, or start a business, right? Jupiter in the 11th is very much like, let's go, let's be visible, let's share our knowledge with other people. And Venus being in the 2nd might be a bit of a sort of, she's like asking you, do you have enough resources for that? She's maybe asking you to move a little bit slowly. She's asking you what you truly value. And then the opposition to Saturn in the 8th is very much a sign that before you focus on these new pursuits, you have to address your finances. You have to handle debts you have. You have to pay off any loans you still possess. So very much like tension between goals, dreams, and resources available. Resources that you have and resources that you owe. Maybe even honestly figuring out who you want to bring with you, like which friendships you want to continue, which relationships and projects are viable, which ones are financially lucrative, right? Because I wouldn't encourage you to follow the money only, right? But the money is an important thing, right? Especially if you're exploring multiple projects. There might be some conflicts with friends involving money and resources as well, and potentially opportunities to like reinvent how you spend and what you spend on. Definitely watch out for like overspending, because another way I can see this manifesting with Venus in the 2nd, Jupiter in the 11th, you just like lend money to someone, to a friend, because they are in need without realizing that you yourself, that this money has already been spoken for, basically. Let me know how this resonates. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are the beautiful Virgo rising, for you, it's all about the identity, your relationships, and your career. And it's funny because I just went to my boyfriend's parents' 50th wedding anniversary, and I like pulled up the charts for a bunch of his family members, and there's a lot of like Leo, Virgo, Sag. So I'm like, oh, now I'll have like another frame of reference for this. But anyways, back to you guys. Sorry. You have Venus in the 1st, squaring Jupiter in the 10th. And there is a lot of focus right now on your identity, your goals, your career, right? Like Jupiter in the 10th is very much new opportunities, maybe a chance to teach, a chance to lead, a chance to inspire and like somehow uplift other people in the world. And Venus is also in the 1st, giving you that like charm and a chance to shine, a chance to be more visible. And then the opposition to Saturn comes in, and that might be a sign that before you get to the place of professional success and you reach your goals, you may have to deal with the relationship challenges. And relationship challenges could be of all kinds, right? For some, maybe you are going through a divorce, and before you pursue your professional goals, you need to settle your divorce. And so Saturn in the 7th reminds you that you cannot like take action yet because like, I don't know, the house is not officially yours, or you can't use the car yet, or whatever. Like maybe your assets are frozen or something. Saturn in the 7th might be the duty you have to your business partner, or the duty you have to a spouse, or even a spouse going through a bit of a tough time right now where you are having to figure out, you're having to compromise and, you know, maybe try to weigh all the things, like how do you take care of yourself and your goals and not give up on your relationship potentially. So it could be a bit frustrating because I think Saturn is very strongly activated, especially at this point, and squares Jupiter, and Venus is also here trying. Venus is trying to encourage you to sort of balance things and be gentle and kind and, you know, express things with patience and be like a peacemaker, but I think it still might feel really frustrating. For some, it might literally be like the partner telling you, no, you can't go, you can't do something because they need you. Or you might also be questioning, like, you know, the Saturn in the 7th, like you might be getting married soon. And the question is also like, can you start a business right now if you're getting married and you're about to get pregnant and have a baby? So there's a lot of important questions. The missing piece here is Sagittarius in the 4th house. And so maybe the answers can come from family, getting in touch with family, or also just like taking some alone time, going into your happy place, recharging, and reconnecting with yourself. Please share how this resonates. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are the lovely Libra rising, Venus in your 12th house will square Jupiter in the 9th, will oppose Saturn in the 6th. And here I wonder if you're dealing with some kind of like emotional turmoil that is maybe inspired by, or that is maybe related to some kind of like health situation or a travel delay or some type of uncertainty in your life, right? Like Venus in a square to Jupiter in the 9th might be implying that you are thinking of opening yourself up to new topics of study. Maybe you're thinking of traveling. Maybe you're thinking of like putting yourself out there and growing somehow. And there might be a sense of like things happening a little bit faster than you would like. And that position from Venus to Saturn in the 6th feels like there's a bit of a sense of like overwhelm, being overloaded, too much work, you know, health issues that you're dealing with, or some duties you have to other people that are slowing you down and holding you back. And so this could literally be some type of rejection involving travel, involving spirituality, involving work matters that you're having to deal with. And with Venus in the 12th too, there is an interesting theme, and Jupiter in the 9th, there's an interesting theme coming up in terms of how you deal with things not going your way, how you deal with challenge, right? This could literally suggest that there is some type of like problem, situation, health, challenge, like other people that you need to take care of, that is pulling you outside of your dream case scenario, right? And making you feel very like negative. And like the question is like, do you tend to be critical and do you tend to be hard on yourself, or do you try to support yourself in the process? And so if you lean into the more critical, perfectionist, self-doubt type of energy, maybe this is your opportunity to focus on taking better care of yourself. And the fact that the missing piece of this T-square is Sagittarius in the 3rd house might actually be supportive of that, I think, because like 3rd house represents how you think, how you talk, your sort of everyday life, how you take care of yourself, your hobbies, your interests. And so the missing piece being Sagittarius in the 3rd, I think suggests that you are very much invited to rethink your mundane life and your little thoughts that you normally don't maybe even notice or pay attention to, in order to improve your big life and your well-being, and even honestly your health. Like if you are dealing with some kind of health issue at this point, don't look at the big issue. Look at like the small improvements that maybe even start in your brain that you can make before going for like the big sort of prize win change. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Now to the beautiful Scorpio rising. Venus in your 11th house will square Jupiter in the 8th, and then will oppose Saturn in the 5th. And here you're having to deal, I think, with your dreams. Venus in the 11th represents your, perhaps, role in the collective, your involvement with your friends, your desire for some type of like harmony and everyone to get along, right? In your social circle, in your family, whatever it might be. The square to Jupiter might perhaps reflect a financial matter where you are being too generous with someone, right? Like the square to Jupiter, Venus squaring Jupiter in the 8th could be like the danger of overspending, or maybe even a sense of like you lending money to somebody. And then the opposition to Saturn in the 5th could be like a cold shower, or realization that by doing that you are taking some money away from your future child, if you're pregnant right now, or from your child's needs potentially. Or even your partner doesn't maybe agree with some of your spending. There's a little bit of like needing to balance your responsibilities to others and what you, like the plans you have socially as well, with what you need to do for yourself, right? Like Saturn in the 5th is almost forcing you to be more structured and more organized when it comes to your pleasure. Saturn in the 5th can also be a sign that maybe you need to get more serious about not drinking as much or not smoking as much. It might like very much suggest that you need to kind of, like focus on taking better care of yourself. And the square to Jupiter in the 8th, I wonder if there is some type of investment you're thinking of making, or some type of like financial action that you were thinking of doing that needs to be reviewed or rethought or like approached more strategically, potentially, because like the square to Jupiter in the 8th might suggest that like and it's Jupiter in the 8th also squaring Saturn in your 5th, might suggest that like your money right now or your resources are not as free. So that might also be like another concern that you are dealing with. Opportunities that are coming in as well, like, you know, with Venus in the 11th square Jupiter in the 8th, some type of opportunity, some type of partnership that comes into your life that maybe you cannot quite take because of the child on the way, because of the commitment to a relationship or something else. The missing piece is Sagittarius in the 2nd, because we have all mutable signs, but Sagittarius represented. And Sagittarius in the 2nd might encourage you to ask what is it that you truly value. Maybe focus on things that get you excited and optimistic. And, you know, if there are any financial troubles or difficulties, perhaps with the missing piece in Sagittarius, you can get yourself something small that makes you feel a little bit better. Please share how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, Anastasia.astrology.com. If you are a Sagittarius rising, Venus in your 10th house will square Jupiter in the 7th and oppose Saturn in the 4th. And Venus in the 10th reflects your strong focus on your career. Right now, you are maybe making professional moves, you're trying to do work that brings you joy. And the square to Jupiter in the 7th brings in an element of partnerships. Maybe there's a business partnership that you're starting. Or, you know, Venus in the 10th square Jupiter in the 7th, could there be like a romantic development that you're going through, moving in with your significant other, or joining, sort of getting engaged, getting married, some type of like relationship development that maybe affects your career in a positive way too. Or maybe it just pulls you in a bunch of different directions. And then there's this opposition to Saturn in the 4th, which might suggest that there are certain duties and limitations and responsibilities you have to your family that you first need to address, like a family member, you know, has a health issue and they need to be regularly seen by a doctor, and you need to figure out how to organize that. Like maybe with Jupiter in the 7th house, you've been ready to move in with your partner and that will take you to a different town or something. So like you need to try to manage your familial duties. Saturn in the 4th can also suggest that there are some real estate matters that are getting mixed up, that there are some like home renovation, home remodeling matters that are going a little bit slowly, that maybe even Saturn in the 4th, maybe like their family, if we're talking about a relationship, a romantic relationship, maybe you're having to deal with like their family and how they see things and what they expect of you, sort of like dealing with expectations of family, responsibilities to family, even maybe healing things. The opposition to Saturn in the 4th might imply that there are some matters that you haven't fully healed, some sort of childhood wounds that are still affecting your romantic relationships and even your career. Please share how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, Anastasia.astrology.com. If you are the lovely Capricorn rising, Venus in your 9th house opposes Saturn in the 3rd and squares Jupiter in the 6th. So Venus in the 9th square Jupiter in the 6th might suggest that there is, you know, Venus in the 9th craves learning. She wants a relationship with a foreigner. She wants to travel. The square to Jupiter in the 6th might be an abundance of possibilities, like there are a lot of places to go, a lot of people to see, a lot of exciting new beginnings. It might also be reflective of your professional life. Venus in the 9th square Jupiter in the 6th, maybe a bit of a need to narrow things down, because Jupiter in the 6th can bring like a lot of new interests. You're learning about nutrition, and you're learning about exercise, and you're learning about astrology and Reiki, and it's just like a lot going on. And then of course both Jupiter squares Saturn in the 3rd and Venus opposes Saturn in the 3rd, and it feels like you're literally running into the issue of like time being limited, right? Time is limited. Saturn in the third might suggest that like you have to say no to some things. You have to maybe make some compromises. There might be, if you're trying to study 5 things, maybe you need to narrow it down to 2, right? For the time being. There might also be some like logistical issues represented by this Saturn once again, like if you've been planning a trip or you've been planning to go back to school. The opposition to Saturn in the third might suggest that there are, that you didn't get the scholarship you wanted to get yet, or you don't, like your car needs to be serviced and it's actually not gonna take you to the trip you're going to. So there might be some sort of like logistical issues, communication issues, scheduling issues that you need to address before you grow, basically. Please share how this is resonating, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, AnastasiaDoesAstrology.com. If you are an Aquarius rising, for Aquarius risings, Venus in the 8th house will square Jupiter in the 5th and then oppose Saturn in the 2nd. And this is very financially oriented, very much about my values, their values, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to creative projects, self-expression, when it comes to parenthood, right? Venus in the 8th is very other people focused. She wants to collaborate, she wants to partner up, she wants to start a joint bank account, to make an investment together. She's like, like on some level with Venus in the 8th, you're currently very like focused on your relationships. And then the square to Jupiter in the 5th is actually also very romantically oriented, right? Jupiter in the 5th is all about pleasure, and it's all about having fun, and it's all about maybe like taking on new things, like moving a relationship forward, getting pregnant, going on a trip with your significant other. And then there's that opposition to Saturn in the 2nd, and you may run into the fact that your resources are somehow restricted right now, right? Maybe you want to go on a trip or you want to start a saving account with your partner, but you just recently lost a job and you don't have a lot of money to spare. Maybe you are paying off a debt. Maybe you have a mortgage that you're paying off and you don't have a ton of money to like invest. Maybe there is some type of like a difference between you and your partner, right? Like you view things very differently. You look at parenthood differently. You look at childcare differently, which is kind of very similar to parenthood, but you look at spending money differently. So having to deal with these like serious tensions surrounding money values is quite highlighted here. And the missing piece is Sagittarius in the 11th house. It's a T-square, meaning it highlights 3 signs of a certain modality, in this case mutable signs. But the one that's missing is Sagittarius in the 11th. And so I wonder if your friendships can provide some answers right now. Maybe, in order to remove yourself from this like tense situation, it's best for you to get out and have fun with your friends and go spend the night away, spend the night talking to them. Maybe they can even offer some supportive advice right now. And even like, honestly, with Sagittarius in the 11th house, like take the focus a little bit away from yourself, maybe volunteer, maybe do something helpful to your community, and things will feel a little better because you're less in your head on some level. Please share how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, AnastasiaDoesAstrology.com. Last but not least, if you are the beautiful Pisces rising. For Pisces risings, we have Venus in the 7th, squaring Jupiter in the 4th, opposite Saturn in the 1st. And this one is an interesting one because there is a bit of a tension between your relationship and what's happening in your romantic life, your home, family, and living situation, and all the responsibilities you have to yourself. And please share, how has this been showing up for you? Because Jupiter-Saturn square has been building for a while. But Venus in the 7th square Jupiter in the 4th, right? This is like your relationship and your living situation. Maybe you're thinking of moving in together. Maybe you have recently moved in with your significant other. Maybe you are living with their family. There is some type of like action involving relationship and property or living situation. Maybe suddenly you're like, okay, let's do this. Let's move in together. Why not? But then the opposition from Venus to Saturn in the 1st suggests that, and it doesn't have to be just about moving. It could be about you starting a business together or getting engaged, getting married, etc. And then the opposition to Saturn in the 1st, to me, reads as somehow it's a continuous theme, right? Like Saturn has been in your 1st house for a while. So we're looking at, what do you need to do? How do you need to take care of yourself first? How do you need to take care of your health? How do you even need to, on some level, change the way you think about things before you take that next step, right? Before you buy a house, move in with your significant other, even overcome some kind of like childhood wound, you first need to like focus on yourself, take care of yourself, and some like tensions also between your needs. Maybe you need rest, maybe you need alone time, maybe you need to see your parents, right? Or you need some kind of like me time. And how do those needs, are they supported by your relationships, or are they contradicting, or do your relationships contradict those personal needs? And so needing to navigate those, needing to have some tough conversations. The missing piece is Sagittarius in the 10th house, so maybe you should dedicate time to a passion project or take the attention away from all the things that are going on in your life, your relationship, and maybe even focus on your work for the time being, especially if you enjoy your job. But don't hesitate to have these conversations. The Jupiter square Saturn is a continuous storyline in 2024, so you can't really avoid difficult topics right now, and you really need to make sure that you are learning how to have a better balance in your life and how to not sacrifice your own needs for the needs of the relationship. Please share how this resonates. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. And thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your support. I appreciate everyone who has been here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.